I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up. Then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Lexi and Gabe. Today's guest is Matthew Beaudin. Matthew didn't come from privilege. He came from near the bottom and found his calling through his uncle, who showed him food could be more than survival. It could be purpose. His journey wasn't linear. Suspended from high school for working late in kitchens, tech school, then CIA, Rwanda, Hong Kong, 11 years, 11 different places, honing his craft across kitchens, docks, and family farms around the world. This wasn't tourism, it was field work. For over a decade, he pursued sustainability not as a trend, but as a mission. He spent 11 years teaching kids to dream through food, and now he's following that generation into higher education to expand his impact. A LinkedIn top voice, Food Network chef, and global speaker, Matthew is focused on legacy over spotlight. As he says, be the drop of water that starts the wave, put one foot in front of the other. Food can be a transaction or a revolution. Matthew chose the revolution. Matthew, welcome to the show.
All right, welcome everyone back to the Do Hard Things podcast. We are so excited to have you all back, and we're pumped. Matthew, welcome to the show, man. We just heard your bio. How you doing? We're excited about it.
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here, man.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Lexi and I are big foodies, so we're really pumped to talk about what your journey looks like here. But let's get into it. Let's talk about your origin story. How did you get into this passion, and how did you get started?
Yeah. So first off, I love hearing that you're foodies. I feel like that's like I fell into being a chef at the right time because everybody's kind of a foodie in some way or another. Like everybody's passionate about some piece of this industry. And I would say I fell into this industry through like family ties. And so my uncle was a chef. And when I was a kid, this is for all the wrong reasons. So I got into it because it was cool and because everybody paid attention to my uncle. And so we'd be at like these family gatherings and everyone's there. And like Christmas, Thanksgiving, like everybody's in one place. They're all having separate conversations. Mom and dad are over here, grandma and grandpa over here. The aunts and uncles are arguing. And my uncle would come in from his job and have like this big turkey or the prime rib, and everybody would stop. And they'd all come over and they would just like stare at this centerpiece of meat and like, wow, you're so cool. I can't believe you made that. And then we'd sit down at the table and we'd all come together and we'd all talk about the same thing. And we'd all share stories and everyone would laugh and cry. And I realized that food was like powerful at such a young age. And it's like, it was like the equivalent of me to like seeing a hero, right? Like you see this person and they're holding the big sword, or you're like, wow, they are wielding power over this entire situation. And so as a kid, I realized that food was power. in later in life, I realized that it was power to do a whole lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about your uncle. I know you had told me beforehand that he was really your inspiration and the person that showed you what it could be. What did he teach you that really set you on this whole path?
You know, my uncle taught me that food was about bringing people together, and I didn't know it at the time that that was going to be my thing, right? I didn't know that bringing people together through food was going to be what I wanted to do or what my career turned into. But bringing people together through food in my younger years meant family, and I think when you're young, and I my family was kind of scattered, and so seeing them come together was powerful. I think now more than ever, you look at the world is fairly scattered. And so being able to bring people together through food now as an adult is incredible.
That's amazing. And so obviously our show is called Do Hard Things for a reason.
Yeah.
We tend not to invite guests on here who, was given a business by their parents, right? Where they walked into an operation already successful and generations of success. So, you didn't come from that, right? You weren't given a restaurant when you were 18. You were suspended from high school when you were young, right? You were up all night preparing in the kitchen and you really didn't care about school. You cared about this. So walk us through that moment and what were you chasing really to make everything else irrelevant? Where was that hyper focus coming from?
Yeah, I was chasing what I didn't know at the time was passion, man. And I think the school system is for me not built for people like me, right? It's built to be very structured. It's built to show up, do the work, go home, practice the work, show back up, and it's systematic. And my brain doesn't work in that kind of a system. My brain is hands on, right? I want to see immediate results. I want to see the people around me happy immediately. Like I want to see change. And I think when your brain operates in a change maker capacity, it's a little bit different. Um, Growing up, yeah, I mean, school was not my priority because I felt like cooking was real and food was not. And I was doing something that every single day made a difference, whether it was cooking for a wedding or having somebody's birthday party at the restaurant. Like I would literally wake up, man, at 5 in the morning. I'd go to the restaurant, I'd do prep, and then I'd get to like 6 o'clock. And I'm like, I'm not going to work or to going to school. This shit's way more fun. And so I just stayed. And then my mom would get a call that I didn't show up to school, and she'd like, "Listen, you're suspended. The last thing I want is you here tomorrow, so you can take your ass to work." And so I would go to work. And so this is kind of this system of like a reward system where like I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to be in the restaurant. If I stayed at the restaurant, I got to go back to the restaurant. And so it just became like this system that I learned worked for me. Um, but I love it, and it has been so good to me, man. Like nothing in this world is more rewarding than being a chef to me.
That's awesome. And you have incredible stories and experiences. You were tech school, CIA, Rwanda, Hong Kong. You didn't just learn in the kitchens, you really lived all over the world. And at one point, you said you were alone in a hotel, no friends, just work. What was that like, and what did that teach you?
Yeah, you get to be your own best friend. When I was alone, I think in a hotel is one thing, right? But like I literally to this day spend 280 days a year on the road, and you learn to really love being with yourself. I had somebody the other day say, "Man, can you believe people eat by themselves?" And I like, stopped. I was like, "Wait, what? Is that not normal?" Because I eat by myself every single night, and I go hang out with myself, and like I hadn't stopped to process how good I've gotten at being alone. And it is so important, I think. And that's one of the things like advice wise I give to everybody all the time. Like you need to get comfortable with you. Like you are the reason you're gonna fail, you're the reason you're gonna succeed. But if you can't get comfortable sitting, whether it's in a restaurant or a hotel or in peace and quiet with yourself, like that was my biggest enemy at a young age.
So you are a global really icon when it comes to your traveling, right? It's unbelievable. We were talking earlier in the green room of how many places you've been, but it's incredible. I mean, you bounce around the world, building your craft, but most people crave stability, like you were talking before. So you choose motion, you choose chaos, you choose, obviously always hunting and going other places. Why do you constantly look for that moment where you're, moving on instead of just staying put and staying stable?
I will tell you because those moments, that chaos is where I find reality. Like that's the real. Everything else to me is scripted, right? Like the most scarce resource we have in today's world is attention. And so like to get somebody's attention is so difficult. But when you're in those moments in that chaos, like you're there with somebody and you don't have a choice but to be in the moment. And so travel for me, yeah, it's chaos every single time. And no matter where I am, and I put myself in these situations because I feel alive. And I think I wouldn't say I'm an adrenaline junkie because you couldn't pay me enough money to jump out of an airplane or bungee jump. I think there's a little bit of a control issue there. But I 100% love those moments where I'm down in the Mekong Delta and I'm sitting in, a thatched roof hut and we're drinking water. They put ice in my water and I wonder if I'm gonna live to see tomorrow. And I just, it's those moments where it's the most real thing ever. And I don't have a choice but to be present. The cell phones don't work. The battery on the computer is dead. You don't have an exit home until somebody comes back up and hopefully picks you up on the boat. If the weather gets bad, you're spending the night in the mud. And so it's those moments of like, you have to be fully present and you don't have a choice.
Yeah. And you talk about these moments, and I think there's a moment in a lot of people's career where they either feel like they're gonna quit or fully commit to it. Did you have a moment like that?
I had a season, I would say, right? I measure life in seasons, right? It's always like this is a good season for me, this is a bad season for me. I would say the season for me was I had gone to the Caribbean and I loved it. And I was like, this is gonna be my new jam. And I got down there, and as soon as I got to the Caribbean, I got my apartment and I opened up my fridge and there's a bag of weed. It's gotta be like a half-pound bag of weed, sticks and stems. And I was like, this is kind of weird. I said, "Hey, buddy, there's a whole bag of weed in my fridge." He said, "Oh, they'll come back and get it." I said, "They'll come back and get it? This is my apartment, isn't it?" He said, "Oh, yeah, they'll come get it." I said, "Oh, this isn't going to work for me." And so I stayed like another 3 or 4 weeks. And I remember specifically, I was going to bed one night and I turned all the lights off and went to sleep and the light turned back on. And I was like, that's the weirdest thing that's ever happened. Turned it back off, light turned back on. I was like, somebody's messing with me. Turn it back off, light turns back on, door comes slamming open. I packed my shit and I was gone the next day. Not very long after, I went to Hong Kong. I'm in Hong Kong. I decided I was going to go work at this prestigious hotel. And it's like I'm on the 13th floor. I'm not superstitious at all. And I wake up in the middle of the night to fire alarms going off and open my door, and they are dragging a lady down the hall and I have to exit because they've taken what I would later learn is she committed suicide. She put all this stuff inside her trash can and started a fire in her bathroom, set herself in the bathroom, and then through smoke inhalation passed away. Well, instead of putting the fire into the tub and turning the tub on, they moved it out of the room down the hall. The hall was half carpet up the wall, started a fire in the hotel. We have to go down the stairs. They're dragging this lady step by step, 13 floors in front of me, to head on the floor, each one. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like, this is bad experience after bad experience after bad. I'm not meant for this. Like, I cannot handle traveling. Everywhere I go, bad things happen when I try to travel. And I would say I had this realization of like, if you surround yourself or if you let that be your story, then that's going to be your story. If you let that moment define you, that will be your story. And I ended up staying in Hong Kong for quite some time after. I took out a couple personal loans. I worked in wet markets. I worked in a frog market, in a dove market. Um, I would say it broke me from a human perspective and it broke me from a culinary perspective. But what I didn't realize is it was building me up at the same time.
Wow. This is absolutely awesome. So I was going to ask this question because you kind of just answered it, but the restaurant business is kind of like, people love the lifestyle and people see like the glitz and the glamour, but it's really a grind, right? And you lived in those stories just kind of prove that out. What are some other realities really that nobody else talks about or nobody really knows unless they're in the thick of that grind instead of just seeing all the nice things on the outside?
I think the biggest piece is the restaurant industry will eat you. You know, it'll eat your time, it'll eat your relationships, it'll eat your sleep, it'll eat your peace. You know, in people always, not always actually, I would say over the last 20 years, people have started to realize, right? Prior to what we see now with the advent of the Food Network and everything else, like being a chef wasn't even a thing. So I want to say it was like 70 years ago, maybe I might be a little off. But being a chef wasn't even considered a career, like by the US government standards, like being an auto mechanic, being a plumber, like being a chef was not a career. Like a chef wasn't it's something we called ourselves, but it was not real. And so it wasn't even good enough to be called a job. And so I think realizing what people are starting to realize is it is a grind and it is tough, but it will literally take everything from you. And it's one of the few industries that can do that, right? It can consume you and take your whole world, but it can also give you absolutely everything. The people in this industry, what I love most is it come from all walks of life. Like there is such a unique um I think collection of humans in this line of work, right? Whether it's I'm working with people who just got out of prison, you know, people who are trying to make it, people who switched careers, people who are chefs, people who went from the front of the house to the back of the house. Like you have people from so many walks of life because cooking is something everybody can do. Like I can't hop in a plane tomorrow and learn to fly a plane. I'm not going to go, "Hey Delta, can you teach me how to fly this thing?" They go, "Yeah, sure, hop in the cockpit." It doesn't work. But if somebody comes into my kitchen and goes, "Hey, I want to learn how to cook," I can teach you. I can start teaching you today. And within 6 months, you can really start a career. But there's not too many careers in life you can do that.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And you're not just cooking anymore, you're building scalable food systems and leading culinary innovation. What does culinary innovation actually mean at that scale?
I think culinary innovation at the scale that I'm doing it at is systems, right? It's an environmental stewardship. It is socioeconomic impacts. It's not the plate. And I say a lot of times like we get so lost in the plate as chefs, and that is the equivalent of like telling an ant in Texas that there is this place in Africa. Like it doesn't, you can't compute. It's not even the same. It's like talking the universe and different universes. When you start thinking about space, it's so vast, but we're focused on this one little planet, and that's the plate to me. That plate is Earth, right? And you have just this little center of the universe that you think you are, and you're putting everything on it, and it's just a moment in time. But when you talk about sustainability and building systems and scalable impact, like that's the universe. Like that is what makes everybody else go around. That is our place in all of it. And so I think when I look at how do I scale that, it's making sure that what I do has impacts beyond myself. And sustainability, if you ask certain people, means different things, right? To Seafood Watch, it means sustainability of the world's oceans. It means utilizing species and systems and working within the confines of something that make this an ecosystem better. To me, sustainability means that, but it also means it tastes good. Like it also means that the people I'm buying it from can live. If I'm buying shrimp from Vietnam and the people that are growing the shrimp don't have a better life because I'm buying the shrimp, I'm doing a disservice. And so it can taste good and it can be sustainable, but you're hurting somebody. And so for me, it's the entire system, right? And that is a really difficult thing for a lot of people to understand. Is like food is sustenance, but that goes way down the line. And so what I've tried to do, especially over the past probably 36 months, is connect people to that line, get them in tune with where your food comes from, right? Farm to table is the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard in my life because everything started on a farm and everything ends up on your table. And so the idea that someone coined this phrase like, "Oh, farm to table," like, no kidding, dude. But but there is a lifeline attached to every one of those things. And if I can attach you and I can make you understand and I can open the door for you, like that is the biggest gift I can give everybody. Not everybody can go to Vietnam. Not everybody wants to stand in the Mekong Delta. Not everyone wants to take that insane boat ride where I'm like literally untying my boots in case I end up in the water so I can swim. And like, but if I can transport you there and I can bring you with me and I can help you understand, then maybe when you're standing at Whole Foods, you go, that's that shrimp I was looking for. This is where I want to spend my money. And then that money makes a difference.
This is amazing. So how has that transformation been received, right? Because transforming food programs, they were mediocre at best for decades. And, to your point, everything's been centered around the food. And it's really kind of, an afterthought when it comes to just the program itself, what you're saying. So walk us through what it actually is taking to rebuild a broken food system. And has it been received? Because what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. Has it been making sense to others?
Yeah, I think, man, the most important thing you just said is our food system is broken. And anybody who argues that is getting paid by somebody else. Our system is so broken, and I want to say nearly beyond repair at this point, right? Like the stuff that is in our food is crazy. Like anybody listening to this, I would challenge you to go find a Whole Food. I have a gentleman who is a friend of mine who runs past. He owns Past the Honey. It's this little like purple topped honey thing where you just eat the comb. And I said, bro, why would you get into the honey game? Like, it seems like a really obscure market. Number one. Number two, there's tons of it.
Right.
He said, well, there's no good honey. I said, what does that even mean? He said, well, think about it. He said, every bit of honey you eat has pesticide in it. I said, well, no, there's natural honey. He goes, no one controls where the bees go. He said, so if the bees go to your neighbor or the bees go to somewhere else and they're spraying with pesticides, like it's a problem. And it literally broke my brain. And so like I've never looked at honey the same again. This guy goes all the way to Turkey to get honey now, where it's like in these remote areas in Turkey where there's no pesticides being used. And I started like diving down rabbit holes, dude, of like literally it is crazy numbers. Like billions of bees are brought to California each year just to service almond trees, and like it's 40 to 50% loss. Those trees are sprayed with chemicals. The bees then make the honey. We harvest, like it's such a rabbit hole if you want to go down it. And so I think from the change perspective, people are ready for it. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to go down the rabbit hole because that's a scary rabbit hole. And I think once you start looking at your food, it's like there is no good option. Like your apples are coated in wax. You're like everything you eat has something on it. Like your water shouldn't have a label on it. It shouldn't have ingredients on your water. If you just want to drink water, it should say water. It is so hard to find food, and that is asinine to say that it's hard to find, but it is difficult to find just food these days. And so I think when I'm trying to translate that to people, that they're excited. They want it because if I can tell you that where you spend your money, I've done the research. I've made it easy for you. Like that takes the work out. And so if I'm saying, listen, the prospect is sustainability is expensive, or it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't cost more. That is a myth. And people took advantage of it, right? So it's no different than, again, farm to table. If I put farm to table on a menu, you paid more when it started, right? If I put fresh on a menu, like it paid. It's one of those stupid keywords. Like if it's not fresh, we got a problem. If it didn't come from a farm, we got a problem. Like nobody thinks those things. They just go, ooh, fresh, local. Like, okay. And so when you put those keywords on there, people pay for them, and people took advantage of that for a long time. And what that did was create this image in people's minds that sustainability costs more, or doing the right thing costs more. It doesn't cost more. People took more because of it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so much greenwashing out there in food right now, like you mentioned. How do you separate that real impact from the marketing exaggeration? Like, how should the consumer really be able to differentiate that?
Yeah, it is greenwashing, right? And I think if you can't name the farmer, then it's marketing, right? Like if you can't name the fisherman, it's just branding. Like you are literally just using this to market and brand your own operation. Like the people doing the work are the ones who are crushing it for me. Like they're the heroes to me. As a chef, I'm just the conduit. Like I literally take the chicken and I roast it. Like that's pretty basic, and I can teach anybody how to do it. But the guy that wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or the lady who collects the eggs, the one who slits the chicken's throat, like that's some rough stuff to deal with. Like, I've been on a kill floor. I've been to the farms. I've slaughtered the animals. We've made agreements in restaurants before where we don't use meat unless we're the ones who harvest it. Like, that's some rough shit. And so those people deserve recognition. And so when you're just greenwashing, to me, it is the most disrespectful thing, not to the guests, but to the people who grew the food, to the animal, to all of it. And it's, you have these lives that otherwise would not have been taken if you didn't order the food you ordered as an operator, as a chef. And so you're asking so much, and you have a duty to tell the story, and tell it honestly, um, not tell it in a way that's going to just increase your sales.
Incredible. We obviously live in this post-COVID world, and the restaurant business got hit hard, but so many other industries did as well. But now that we've come back, I sit in this chair all day long. It's very, and I have to like force myself to literally get out of my office. You're obviously in the cooking and being a chef, you're in the restaurant all day long, preparing, preparing, preparing. But you do it differently, right? You are on the road, you are traveling, you're on airplanes, you're going all around the world. What is that? How is that more important, and how does that help you, be in the field, if you will, versus not when it comes to your profession, and more importantly, everyone else's who is still feeling that, I would say, isolation when they're at home or at the office or at the restaurant.
Yeah, I think it does what, for me, what I'm trying to do for everyone else, which is it gives me a sense of place, right? And I think when you stand in the mud in the mangroves in Vietnam, right? Or like when I'm standing on a seawall in Ghana with, a shanty village behind me, like I just, there's something about it where I can close my eyes and I can be there, right? I can smell the mud, I can feel the sea breeze hit my face still. Like I can, it gives me a sense of place, and that's what I'm trying to do with food. Is, again, I know not everybody can travel. I know not everyone has that luxury, and I know just how lucky and fortunate I am. And I feel like it's such a responsibility to bring people along for the ride with me, and especially after COVID, right? Like people are more excited now to travel than ever. Travel is harder, more frustrating, more inconsistent than it's ever been. And so if I can transport you there through food, and I can bring you along with a story, like that is the best gift I can give anybody. Like we can truly change lives through food. And I say often, like, be the drop of water that starts the wave to change the world, right? Like you can you can fix, you can change, you can do anything. And I think a lot of times as one person, we forget, like, you have massive power. Like, dude, I literally, like, we started was the bottom of my class, right? Bottom of my class out of 500 kids. Like, it was over. I went to jobs for after school graduates, and then I got into a tech school. Like, my goal in life was to make as much money as I could pumping gas. Like, that's what it was going to be. And I took a call yesterday to go speak at the Culinary Institute of America with Harvard and Stanford. And I laughed, and they said, "What's funny?" I said, I wouldn't have been on your list 20 years ago if I paid you $1 million. And it is not luck, and it's not circumstance. It is pressure, right? You put pressure on the system daily. You don't stop. You reach out. You walk into rooms you shouldn't be in. You pick up phone calls you shouldn't take, and you send emails and messages that you just have no business sending, because if you don't, then the world's going to pass you by.
So let's double down on that because, again, hard things, right? It's all about the pressure you just mentioned. So I want to just kind of pick that apart a little bit because kitchens are just stereotypically known for high pressure. My family and I, we love watching The Bear, and they're like, it's the most insane, intense thing you've ever seen, right? But at the end of the day, that high stakes environment, you have to figure that out. You have to build a culture where your team is performing at that high level without burning out or breaking. So how do you do that? How do you build a culture? Because, we have 150 people on our sales floor. very, very different job, very different role, but just as high pressure. And that culture is what allows people from not literally not showing up to work tomorrow after their first day, right? So walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds cliche, right? But in kitchens, you have a bond that's almost family like. And I always try to not use the word family, right? Because I think when businesses use the word family, it's usually the biggest red flag to me ever, because you wouldn't fire your family. You wouldn't say the things you say to me to your family. You wouldn't, you would take care of your family better than you take care of me sometimes. And so I try not to use the word family, but when I say family, I mean the bonds we have and the respect we have and the support we give each other in the moment. And I mean, listen, kitchens were designed off a brigade system. Like literally the brigade system was built after the military. So like it was always a battle. It was always a fight. Like if you step back and think that the very core of this business, what makes it work, the fabric is based off of a military system, then you start to understand that like every day is going to war in a kitchen and you have to figure out how to survive. And you only survive when the people next to you take care of you, when systems are in place and when things are understood and when systems are in place for failure, right? Like the idea that the kitchen is going to succeed is predetermined. Like we have to succeed. But there is a million things that will go wrong in any given night, right? People change their order, people don't like what they ordered, people leave, people walk out in the kitchen, things get burnt, bad stuff happens all the time. Like you're literally, it's knives, fire, hot oil, really unique personalities. Like just put yourself in that position with your own family.
It
Like,
sounds like war right there.
dude, shit falls
Weapons.
apart quick, you know. And if you don't trust the person next to you, I have a gentleman. His name is Adam Young, and you find these people in your career that you just click with. And it took me until I was probably 30 to find that human. But he's the guy in the kitchen that we don't talk. We don't say a word to each other, but he knows what I want. I know what he needs. I know when he's going right. He knows when I'm going left. Like we don't bump into each other. It is this unspoken energy, and that is what makes kitchens work. And I think, in organizations, a lot of stuff is written down. You can paper it to death. You can class it to death. Everything you need to do is a system and a chart and in the kitchen. You don't have time for any of that, and it has to be felt. And that is what I love so much, is whether it's the food on the plate or what's happening in the kitchen. Like it's a dance, and you are constantly in motion. In the motion to me is what I love. As you can see, I don't sit still, but the motion is what I love, and I think that is what's so beautiful about what we get to do. Is it's just one big dance.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said the work is hard, the weight gets heavier, the circle gets smaller. Talk about that. What is the weight and why does the circle shrink?
I think it's as you grow and as you define yourself, you start to lose supporters in life. And I think that's in any industry, right? As you become more yourself, you lose people who were part of the original you that no longer align with you. And so I think as I've grown in my role, in my beliefs, my convictions, I've kind of shed people, and my circle has gotten smaller. What I've realized is those people in your circle, as it tightens, are so much more important, because those are the people who believe in you. They're not the people that are hanging on. They're not the people that are riding with you to the top because they want to be at the top. They're the people that are lifting you up. They're the people that support you. They're people with the same convictions and the same beliefs that are running with you. And I always tell people, like, I will put anybody in my car. Anybody. If you want to come with me, I'll pull over. I'll put you in. Let's go. But don't stand in front of the car. Right? Like let's keep moving forward together. Let's push this together so we can crush it. Because I think all too often in any industry, right, you see a little bit of success and you get scared that somebody might take it. And you go, if I share this success, it's less for me. But the more I've learned that I share, the more successful everybody is. And so I would say to everybody out there, put people in the car with you. Get a bigger car, like get people that want to come with you, because when you have that group riding alongside you in pushing for the same goal, it's absolutely incredible what you can accomplish.
So I've heard this before that, food is a universal language. And with all your traveling and going everywhere around the world, there's limitations to communication. You don't maybe speak the language, they don't speak your language. So the connection though is clear. Like you were saying before, you don't even have to talk to Adam, right? You can just literally work alongside him and dance in the kitchen without even speaking. But talk us through that communication through food globally when, people right now, again, are more disconnected than ever before, just with the way, people are just not really physically socializing. Walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on something that is literally like so core to my beliefs, and I would say I experienced it the first time in Africa, and I had gone to Africa, and I started trying to speak Kinyarwanda, and I had read the books, and it's not pretty. Listen to me speak it. Um, it I realized so fast that food is that language, right? Like think about it. What else do we do every single day that could connect you? There's nothing. Like you couldn't be a mechanic and just put something together with somebody without having a conversation. But food is literally that. Like it is the one thing in this entire planet that connects every human, right? We either want to eat, have to eat, are looking for food. Like everybody eats every single day or tries to, but it's the one thing we all need to survive. And so a tomato is a tomato, a cucumber is a cucumber, a knife is a knife. And like you can show somebody, right? Like in the craziest thing to me is food is it's so personal. If you made chili for me and I made chili and Lexi made chili and we had no recipe, it would be completely different. Because your mom made it one way, Lexi's grandma made it one way, my uncle made it one way. Like, but they're all right. And so to think that like you can travel your entire life, you could eat the same food every day and it would never taste the same. Like that's wild to think. And when you look at things like that are integral to each culture, right? You have curries, right? You have pho, you have like banh mi's, you have all these soups and sauces, and everywhere you go, there's something that holds someone together, right? It's gumbo in Louisiana, right? It's chipino in California, it's chowder in New England. Like these things are handed down to everybody. And it's a way of telling stories, right? You may not sit there and write down your whole family history, but it's in the chowder, right? Grandpa loved bacon. There's bacon in our chowder for damn sure, right? There might not be in yours. Your family might have been vegetarian. They didn't like vegetables. They didn't have access to pork. They didn't have access to clams. And so it's a corn chowder. But like there's there's so many stories inside food, and I think that's what I love most is being able to sit down and try and dissect it. Like why did they do it this way? There's got to be a reason they did it different.
I love that. And I'd love to wrap up here with something else you said that I think is very powerful. Be the drop of water that starts the wave. You have to make a decision to change the world, and you can. How did you come to believe that, and what does it look like in practice?
Yeah, I came to believe it because I didn't believe that I could make a difference. I didn't believe that as one person my voice mattered. And I would say I've only started to believe that in the last 2 to 3 years. And so I say it as much as I can, not only to instill it in myself, but to let other people understand that your story doesn't have to be your story. Where I am today talking to you guys right now, this wasn't my story. My story was pumping your gas when you pulled up. My story was ringing you out at the grocery store because teachers, adults, people in leadership roles looked at me and said, "You're never going to make it, kid. You're not good enough. You didn't try hard enough in your first 17 years of life. And so for the next 60, you're screwed." And I just didn't believe it. And so what I've realized is I am the drop, and I am going to start a wave, and I'm going to knock on every door and pick up every phone and send every email to any single person that'll listen to me. And part of that is hearing no every single day. But the reason I'm talking to you guys today is because we knocked on doors. We had conversations that probably shouldn't have happened, but they did because we tried. And so here we are, and so I would say to everybody, keep pushing, keep knocking on doors, and be the drop that starts the wave.
Matthew, you are such an inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Let's plug you real quick. Who's the right person to reach out to you? How do they get a hold of you? What should they be following, and how do they see your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I feel like it's probably the best place to find me. I'm not on any other socials. LinkedIn has been a really great place for me for articles and to really share my story. I do share all my travels. From a sustainability standpoint, I'm always out here doing some fun stuff. I'd love to talk to anybody, obviously, who's interested. And as whether it be a resource or an opportunity to share the message, I'm here and always willing to talk.
Matthew, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everyone, follow Matthew. He is the man, and I can't wait to physically break bread with you.
Yeah,
maybe it'll be the bread you make for me, but I cannot wait to do that. And thanks so much for joining us on the show. Everyone listening, keep doing the hard things, and we will see you on the next one.